Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda, and I'm so glad that you could join me today. Today, we are going to explore the religion of Sikhism. We're going to talk about how it started, what they believe, how they live their lives, and we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the prejudice that they feel. Especially being in the United States of America, people of the Sikhism religion or Sikhs are frequently targeted because of their outward recognizable features. So we're going to talk about all that in a little bit. So if you want to learn about Sikhism, let's hit that intro and we'll begin. So, in our last video, we were talking about Islam and how many people think that people of the Sikh faith are an offshoot of Islam, and that is not correct at all. Sikhism actually began by a man named Guru. I'm going to butcher their names. I'm just going to be completely honest. Guru Nanak or Nanak. He was alive between 1469 and 1539. He was a guru. So in Sikhism, gurus are people who are what they're known as masters of Sikhism. So they've studied the religion for a long time. They know a lot, and then they are voted on. They're voted on by a consensus of Sikhs to see who's going to be the next knowledgeable one to bring forth ideas. There were a total of 10 gurus, and gurus are non-existent in Sikhism now. They believe they aren't supposed to receive any more gurus, depending on which version you follow. We're going to talk about that later. So it was started by Guru Nanak. And of course, when it was started, he wasn't necessarily a guru. He was thought to be a religious innovator at that time. So it all started, he was born in India, and he was raised in a family of people who were Hindu. And they say throughout his life, he had different events, different occasions that indicated that God had marked him for something special. So I wrote down a couple of these marked hymns just so I could understand better about how God had shown that he was the special one. So at age 11, because his family was Hindu, he was supposed to do a transition ceremony to basically show he's coming of age, and he's supposed to start donning this cord. And at age 11, he said that he was not going to be wearing the sacred cord, and that, quote, people should be distinguished by things they do and their qualities, not by a thread. I thought that was very insightful. In my retrospect, I used to work with teenagers, so pushing back against something that everybody's always done didn't seem necessarily super special. But the way that he expressed it in a clear, articulate way that was very thoughtful and showed his reasoning, I thought was pretty awesome. I really liked his phrasing of that they should be judged and distinguished based on the things they do and their qualities, not on a thread. I liked that. Moving on to the second one, he would argue with local holy men and sages from Hindu and Muslim area, because this was in India again. Those were the two main religions or practices that were over there. That eternal things such as obligations, penance, and poverty were less spiritually important than the internal changes one could make within their soul. Again, I didn't necessarily see that as something special, but definitely very thoughtful. If I were to just see those two things, I would definitely think he was a philosopher and a deep thinker. I don't know that I would say that he was marked for something special by God, but that's just me from the outside. Now, he became an accountant. That was his day job. And he had a powerful spiritual experience that gave him a vision into the, quote, true nature of God. So he was an accountant and he was meditating and he had this experience. And when he had this experience, he learned and really became attuned to the idea that meditation and thoughtful living would lead to spiritual growth, enhancing the divine presence that we all have within each human being. I like that idea because there's something special in everyone. And I think we as society frequently don't look at the special attributes in people. So that was intriguing to me. Again, I'm not necessarily seeing that might be something that marked him by God. I think that might, again, be more like he's a very philosophical person, somebody you could certainly learn from. I liked that idea. I think it's a good idea. So he was an accountant, he got married, he had family, and about when he was 30, he left, well, in his 30s, I should say, he left being an accountant and he went to a different part of India. Now, my research doesn't say if he took his wife and kids with him or if they stayed behind. But basically, in his 30s, he left to go share these teachings with other people. Can't fault him for that. And share these ideas. I liked that idea too. And it was just interesting that he had to leave where he was. Because my amazing boyfriend made a really good point that people who knew you at your beginning rarely can handle when you transition into something different. You typically have to go somewhere else. You have to separate. You have to do something so that people can see you differently. So that was just interesting that this Guru Nanak followed that same pattern. Interesting. It didn't necessarily say in research if he came back. I imagine he did, but I'm guessing at that point when he came back, it wasn't as big of a deal as when he left. So by definition, Sikhs, or the people who follow Sikhism, is described as a disciple or a learner. Sikhism is all about realizing the love and acceptance in between all of humanity and how we can work together, which was awesome. I loved how Sikhism explained their view on life. So I'm going to read a direct quote. Really, really loved this one. It says that they view life as they have not fallen from grace, but it's a unique opportunity to discover and develop the divine in each other. Again, I like the idea of nurturing that special quality, that divine aspect in each of us. Now, do I like it because then it makes me feel special and I'm special then because I have some of the divine in me? Yeah. Do I like it because it focuses on the positive about everyone has something special? Quite possibly. But I liked the way they looked at things, how they worded things. So I wanted to dive deeper. I really went on lots of tangents when I was exploring Sikhism this time, so bear with me. I promise we'll get to the end eventually. Okay. So currently there are 25 million followers of Sikhism worldwide. It is the newest of the major religions, but it is rapidly growing. Okay? It's very intriguing when you're focused on love and focused on unity and focused on all these things that bring people together. I can understand why it would be growing rapidly. So, what they believe, let's talk about that. So, they believe, pardon me, in one God. They call their God Wu He Guru, or Wu Ha Guru. And they believe that God really can't be fully understood by humans, but can be experienced through love and worship and meditation. They can't fully understand it, but they believe that the more they meditate, the more they can understand a glimpse or an aspect of God. And they believe their purpose through life is to develop that closer awareness that they can become all-knowing like God. Okay? They believe that meditation is very important because it looks for the God in themselves and the world around them. Because when you're focused on something, you tend to see it more frequently. If you're focused on negative things or you feel like everybody's against you, you're going to see that more in life. If you're focused on the good and the unexpected, you're going to see that more in life. So, I like the idea. It sounds like good sense. I do believe that some introspection is very good. I personally struggle with meditation just because I don't like to sit down and be quiet for that long with my own thoughts. I tend to be a little bit of a busybody and I want to keep going and doing stuff or having stuff that entertains me. I would struggle with that. But very good thought. I liked it a lot. They believe that all human beings have direct access to God, and they don't need a ritual or a priest. So they don't need somebody to act in intermediate to God, that everybody can access God directly. They openly embrace all religions, as they believe that not one religion fully understands God. So they believe that something from the Christian viewpoint is right, something from the Jewish viewpoint is right, something from the Hindu viewpoint is right, something from the Muslim viewpoint is right. They believe that all religions are purposeful because they all help people understand God in a slightly different way. And they believe your goal, they aren't necessarily about like, oh, everybody should come and join Sikhism. They believe their goal is you should be the best whatever you are. So if you're a Christian, you should do meditation, you should do these studies and things like that, so you can be the best Christian you are. If you are Muslim, you should be the best Muslim you are. Study, worship, do these meditations so that you can be the best that you are, the best that you can understand God and connect with God. Again, I like that. I like that the idea of constantly growing and trying, not necessarily to convert people, but accepting everybody for where they are and that they have something to offer. I like that concept. They also believe that everyone, regardless of gender, regardless of caste system, regardless of nationality, is equal. They believe that everybody is on an equal playing field. And when this started, that was a radical idea because it was very much about the caste system, where depending on your occupation, you were at a certain income level, per se. And they also had different thoughts about people who were different races or nationalities or genders. Frequently the women, for example, were separate, if not less. And Sikhism was very radical in the fact that they say, no, everyone is equal. Women have the same value as men. Noble people have the same value as homeless people. Like, it's all the same. Because everyone has part of the divine in them. They all have value and they all are the same level. I liked that idea. There are 3 main principles that they all follow. And that is be absorbed in meditation and prayer. So they meditate and pray a lot because it's through that practice that you can foster the inner divine in yourself and you can see it more in the world around you. Again, the more you focus on something, the more you'll see it. So they meditate and they pray a lot. Number 2, make an honest income by honorable means. So it doesn't necessarily matter what you do if you are in the Sikh religion, but they want you to do something honorable, not something that would hurt anyone else, not something that would take advantage of anyone else. They are humble people who just work to make an honest income. Okay? And then number 3, they believe they should share earnings and selfishly serve others. Like that idea. Focusing on each other and focusing on the fact that there's a divine in each of us. They want to nurture that. I liked that. Again, I personally struggle with the meditation because that's really hard for me. Could that be good for me? Sure, maybe. But it's something that's hard for me. And the other two make sense. They make sense. Being honest income and then sharing so you can nurture your community. Very good. They are very concerned with egos. They feel that egos are the thing that will turn you away from God and turn you towards negative things. So they work very hard to reduce the effects of one's ego through prayer and meditation. They believe that by focusing on rejecting the ego and kind of trying to humble yourself, you not only reduce your effects of your ego, but you also prevent indulgences. So these are the 5 ego things that they are trying to prevent, okay? Pride, lust, greed, anger, and attachment to worldly things. So they take great pride and joy in working in positions that isn't honest work, but you're not necessarily going to get mega rich. You're going to have enough to keep you humble. You're not going to be lusting after something else. You're not going to be craving that attachment to that object. You're going to want to focus on connection. Okay. There are 4 main commandments in the Sikhism religion. 4. First is do not dishonor the Creator's intention by cutting your hair. So when you convert to Sikhism and where you're born in Sikhism, you do not cut your hair. If you're a man, you do not cut your beard. You do not trim it. They believe that your hair should grow as God intended. And when God intends for your beard to stop naturally growing, it will stop. Okay? So I tried to do some research because that was intriguing to me. Like, okay, so if they don't cut their hair or their beard, do they shave their legs? I couldn't find an answer. But based on the commandment, I would predict not. If you know, please let me know because I'm intrigued. The second commandment, that do not harm the body with tobacco or other intoxicants. Again, they believe that there is a divine in each of us. So if you're doing something to purposely inhibit that divine essence, that would be a big no-no. Number 3, they do not believe you should eat sacrificial meat. Now, this in life is carried out differently depending on where you live. Some people, they don't believe in animal sacrifice at all. But some people will eat meat, just not meat that has been sacrificed. And some people who are Sikhs are purely vegetarian. That's just how they practice. So that's interesting. And then the 4th is they believe you should not commit adultery. Again, there's a divine spirit in each of us, and they believe that once you are married, you shouldn't be cheating because you are injuring that divine spirit in the other person. Very intriguing, right? So I had mentioned earlier that Sikhism frequently takes some ideas and practices from both the Hindu and the Muslim faith. And one of the ways that they do that is actually in their views of what happens after you die. So they have very specific routines regarding funerals. But basically, after you die, they believe that you are reincarnated. They believe that you are on a continual cycle to gain total knowledge and be reunified with God. So based on your karma, based on your actions, you will continually try to evolve to unify to God. Now, interestingly, in the Hindu faith, like there's a level system of you're either going up or down. They don't necessarily believe in Sikhism that there's a hierarchy, but they believe that every life based on your karma will teach you a lesson for your next life. So if you were very hateful towards other people in this life, then next life, maybe you are the recipient of that hate so that you can understand and overcome that and get closer unified with God. That's just what they believe. And it was an interesting thought. There's no hierarchy again because they believe all people are equal. But it was just the different lessons that you're continually learning. So you're on a continual cycle until you reunify with God. And I thought that was intriguing. Very intriguing. So since we're talking about funerals, let's just jump into what they do at their funerals, okay? So their funerals are not like any other funeral you may have been to. It's a very solemn occasion, and it's very purposeful. It's very respectful. So what they will do is when a person is starting to pass, the family will gather around and they will recite scriptures, okay? One of them being they have a special death prayer that they will actually read. When the person passes, the family will wash and dress the body, okay? They don't let other people do it. It's the family that does it. After the body is washed and dressed, the body will go into a casket, but it's open. It's an open air casket. And then it is carried by the family from the place where they passed to their worship space. After the body went to the worship space and they pray over it again, they have a ceremony where you go and show your love and support. They will then cremate the body. Always cremate. It was just interesting because in other religions, you can't cremate it. It's desecrating the body. And there are religions where you are laid out and the birds eat you, or there are religions where you're put out to, it was just very, very interesting. So your body is then cremated, and then your ashes are to be scattered in either a river or a nearby body of water. It has to be flowing water, but that's where your ashes go. If you were attending a funeral, you are to wear white. Because you are going into their worship space, you're going to have bare feet, not stockings or nylons, bare feet, and you must cover your head. Whether you're a man or a woman, you must cover your head as a sign of respect. There are no flowers, but you are encouraged to bring food for the family. Very intriguing. Very different than any funeral I've been to. Is emotional outbursts are very disrespectful. So if you cannot control yourself, you should not go. You should have control of yourself because it is not about you. It is about honoring that person's life. And any funeral that I've been to, there's typically people crying and they're embracing each other and trying to console each other, but they're not supposed to focus on themselves. They're focusing on the person who departed. So very interesting. I liked the idea that, pardon me, the hiccups, that the family has such an integral responsibility in this transition period. When someone passes, it's never easy. And I can imagine that being comforting to having your family around when you're passing. And that even in death, your family is taking care of you. I like that idea. I like that idea from an outsider. Now, do I think I would be able to do that as effectively, as reverently as possible when my grandma passed? I think that would be very challenging. Very challenging for me. But perhaps there's a bigger meaning in that you're going through that tough time together with your family. So that's the interesting thing about funerals. Now, going back to, we talked about what they believed. So how do they worship? We talked about that meditation is very important, and it absolutely is. They will meditate and or pray 5 times a day. Similar to the Muslims, remember? Muslims do it 5 times a day at different times. But in the Sikhism faith, they will have 3 meditations or prayers in the morning. So they can do them all together, or they can do specific ones at different times throughout the morning. 1 in the evening, and 1 before bed. So it's just interesting. Slightly different than the Muslim faith, but very intriguing. They do have sacred texts. So there, like I said, there are 10 gurus, spiritual leaders, masters of the Sikhism faith that they follow. There are 10 books that are associated with them. There are 2 main ones. The first book is Adi Ganath, and that's basically viewed as the most reverend Ganath, which is the guru. It basically talks about the home of the eternal guru, the main thoughts, the main ideas, how to be your best person. That's in the first book. The second most important book, if you want to call it that, is the 10th book, actually. It's the Dasan Garnath. And it's kind of controversial because people view the authorship in different ways. And it's basically a composition of different questions and retelling of legacies and stories that basically show how ego can interfere with our lives. A lot of the stories happen to be about scheming women, just to show that this can happen. A lot of them are about scheming women, so some people don't agree with that because the women are constantly being shown as the person who is falling, and everybody's supposed to be equal in Sikhism. So very intriguing. In the Sikh faith, the community is very important. Very important. It's actually vital. They worship together, they sing together, and they believe that they do that, again, to enhance the idea of fostering the divine within all of us. They believe that there's a power in that community event, okay? They also cook and eat together. They are very big about serving others. That's the third one. They serve others in their community. So Sikhism, in their worship spaces, they will always end their service with a community meal that has been bought and prepared by members of that community. They share that meal together. They all sit on the floor. They all have the same plate. They all have the same amount of food. They all sit side by side with each other. It's not men are one place, women are another place. No, they are all eating the same thing. They welcome people from the community to get comfort in food, in shelter. They'll have They'll feed the homeless, they'll share clothing, things like that. Their worship spaces are community hubs to be a resource for other. And you can go there. You can go to their worship space regardless of what religion you practice or if you don't practice a religion. Again, they welcome and they see the divine in everyone. So that was interesting. Speaking of their worship places are known as Gurdwara. I might have butchered that again. I apologize. And basically, it's the gateway to the guru. So it's always a structure rather large because they want to welcome and do lots of different things. But it will always be noted because there's a triangle flag that flies in these buildings. This flag represents that it's a beacon of welcome and the different tribes that were a part of the Sikhism faith, okay, that started it. They have their services on Sundays. Again, if you go to worship there, if you go to visit there, you're absolutely welcome. You should note that you will have to remove your shoes, again, bare feet, out of respect, bringing everybody down to the same level, and you will need to cover your head, whether with a scarf or a handkerchief or a cloth, anything. It needs to be covered. Whether you're a man or a woman, it needs to be covered. So, very intriguing. I personally have never been to Gurdwara, but I think it would be interesting. Their services have a lot of songs because a lot of the scriptural texts are actually poetry and songs or hymns. So there's a lot of chanting and a lot of songs that are incorporated into it. They do read from the scriptural text. They also will have people who share different insights. And there will also be times for meditation together. And then they end with the meal. So very intriguing in general. If you are a part of the Sikhism faith, there are different rituals that you practice throughout your life. We talked about the funeral already. That's at the end of life. So let's start at the beginning. So at birth, there is a birth and naming ceremony. Okay? This is held at the Gurdwara, the place of worship. And it happens when the mom is able to first bathe. She's able to rise and bathe. So after a woman gives birth, there's a period of time where she's not supposed to be doing anything strenuous. Now, I don't know that she physically cannot bathe at all. I think it's just a period of time where she's supposed to kind of be calm and chill. When she's able to rise, bathe, get out of the house, then she will randomly be given a hymn that has been selected from the Guru Granth Sahib, which is one of their hymn books, and the baby's name must begin with the first letter of that hymn. So that's an interesting thing. I imagine that they would know the name of this hymn beforehand, because I can't imagine going into a worship space with your brand new baby and all of a sudden you have to think of a name that starts with H that fits for your baby, that your baby will be known as for the rest of their life. That's a lot. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure on a new mom. But this happens after the mom is able to recover a little bit from birth. So very interesting. And then to show that they're all the same level, if it's a male, the name Singh, Singh, is added to their name. If it's a female, the name Kaur, Kaur, is added to their name to show that they're all on the same level again. That was intriguing to me. The second passage, or the second rite that they have in Sikhism, is marriage. Marriage ceremonies are quite short in the Sikh faith because many marriages are arranged, because you can only marry somebody of the Sikh faith. And they don't encourage dating before marriage. They don't encourage sexual relationships before marriage. You don't have, everybody's on the same level, but you're not supposed to seek another person out with that intent. Again, you're supposed to see the divine in everyone. You're not supposed to be looking for that. So many relationships are arranged. Not all of them, but many are. Okay? You can only marry in the Sikh community, like I said. So this was intriguing to me. So in the marriage ceremony, like in Judaism, the bride circles the groom. In Hinduism, the bride circles the groom. In Sikhism, the bride and the groom circle the Guru Granth Sahib, the book, 4 times, while the other people sing. That was intriguing to me. Also intriguing was during the wedding ceremony, the groom will wear a sash, and as the bride approaches the groom, the bride's father will take the end of the groom's sash and place it in the hands of the bride, tying them together. That was intriguing to me. In Christianity, they frequently have where the bride will walk towards the groom with her father, kind of like, I protected her for so long, now you're protecting her. So it's just a different way to do that, and that was intriguing to me. Another, and frequently viewed as the most important rite, is the rite of initiation, also known as the Kalasa. Okay? Now, during this, it's when you complete conversion, or if you have broken any 4 of the commandments. So if you ate sacrificial meat, if you cut your hair, if you committed adultery, you would have to do this again. Okay? So you're going to go study and do different things. And then when you come back and you're ready to do this initiation ceremony, basically it happens when there are 6 initiated Sikhs present. Okay? And what will happen is there'll be this large iron bowl, and they're going to add water to it. And then they're going to pour some sweetening aspects to it, whether it's sugar or nectar or whatever. It's going to be sweet. Okay? Then you're going to recite words from the gurus, and you're going to drink 5 handfuls of this sweetness. And each time you're going to cry out, praise to the Guru Kalasa, praise to the Guru's victory. Okay? After that, the mixture is then sprinkled over your head and over your eyes 5 times to bring sweetness into your life. And then there'll be a prayer over you, and then you have essentially returned to the good graces in Sikhism, and you are back part of the fold. Very intriguing. Very intriguing. So those are the 4 main rites. They certainly have different holidays. Because they pull some from the Muslim faith and some from the Hindu, they do share some holidays. They follow the lunar calendar, very similar to the Muslim families, but their calendar starts in November. So it's just slightly askewed. Every calendar starts at a different time. April 14th is a very big important day because that is the birthday of Guru Nanak's. And so they will go and they will attend services, and they will eat together, and they will sing together, and they will pray together. But that's about it. Okay? They do celebrate Diwali. It's commonly known as the Festival of Lights, but they celebrate it slightly differently. They focus on the release of Guru Gobind from imprisonment. So they take something that was existent in another religion, and they're focusing on something else that's important in theirs, just to be kind of similar for that area. They also have Halamalas. And this is the day after the Hindu festival of Holi. It was basically created to be an alternative for this Hindu festival. And on this day, there's a lot of celebration of martial arts skills, and there'll be mock battles, but more frequently, there's military parades. They support and show their appreciation for the military on that day. So that's the important thing about that holiday. Very intriguing that when you are Sikh, you have, again, you're not supposed to eat sacrificial animals, but not everybody is vegan. It all depends on how you interpret it. But they believe that they should strive for a life of moderation. And they believe that moderation should be for the mind and the body. So no intoxicants, like I said, because that's taking away part of your soul. And we talked about the meat with the sacrificial animals. You could be injuring someone else's part of the divine within themselves. Okay. Now, the Sikhs are commonly recognized based on the way they dress. A lot of people think that they are Muslim, but they are not. If you meet a Sikh, they will frequently have a head covering on. If they're male, they'll have a turban. No other religion has a turban just like them. The turban is actually to show that they're all in the same class or caste, if you want to call it like that. Remember, in Sikhism, there is no hierarchy, but the turban traditionally was a sign of nobility. So they all wear turbans to A, protect their hair, and B, show that they are the same class, the same caste, the same level. Females also cover their hair on that same wavelength. They're covering their hair to protect their hair and to show that they're all on the same level. Females typically don't wear the same type of turban just because of fashion reasons. But they do wear turbans. Underneath their turban, they have their hair uncut. Remember, they don't cut their hair, either from birth if you were born a Sikh or from conversion. They don't cut their hair. It's wound and then it's held in place with a wooden comb. The wooden comb holds it in place. It's not supposed to be fancy. It's supposed to kind of ground them and really focus on the importance of protecting and caring for what God has given you. Okay? Under their clothing, they have special garments that they wear. It's called the Sikh undergarments. And basically, it kind of looks like boxers. And it's basically to serve as a reminder of the commandment of not committing adultery. And you're supposed to be very careful to keep it clean and not have any emissions on it and things like that. And it's supposed to also be for modesty. So men and women wear the same type of underwear. It can be different colors, but it is very specific as to what type of undergarment it is supposed to be. They will also wear a steel wristlet, kind of like a bracelet. That is supposed to remind them of their strength, of their commitment, and to stay pure in their thinking. Okay? Their hair is uncut. We talked about that. And to honor that God's intuition of when He wants your hair to stop, then your hair will stop growing. There will also be, underneath their clothing, they frequently wear kind of like a sash that holds a small sword. Not a metal sword, not like they're going to go off fighting, because they are not a violent people. They're very loving and they see the divine in everybody. They will have a small sword which symbolizes that they should defend religious rights of all faiths. So again, defending religious rights of all faiths, not saying they're going to fight people because they're Catholic or they're Jewish or they're Muslim. No, that's their reminder that everyone's beliefs matter. And they should stand up for everyone's beliefs. So if one group is being targeted, the Sikh belief and faith dictates that they should stand up for that group that is being targeted. So they should feel supported. And that was interesting to me. I like that. There is a conversion process. There are people who convert to Sikhism. Again, they're focused on the similarities and the divinity in all of us and how we're all connected and how we're all on these different journeys to really understand God to the best of our ability. So, of course, people are drawn to it. There is a conversion path. Basically, it's twofold, but the steps are kind of long. So, the first one is to change your lifestyle. Now, based on my research, this could be something that happens very quickly. It could be something that takes more than a decade. It all depends on you because you have to be ready to make that next step. Basically, you need to give up intoxicants. Consider becoming a vegetarian. You should start reading and reciting the translations of the sacred written gurus. They don't necessarily say that you have to be able to read it in a certain language. You can read the translations. If you don't know Pujani, which is one of the main main languages that it's written in, you can read it in English. You can read it in Chinese. You can read it in Japanese. Just read the translations so you understand it. You should stop cutting your hair. You should remove all piercings because that is changing and altering your body. Again, they don't do that. You should start wearing a turban or a hair covering because that is something, again, without exception, that everyone does all the time. So that's a big challenge for some people. You should start to contemplate the Guru Granth's Sikhs sacred hymns. So not only just read and recite the passages, you really need to start reflecting and meditating on them. Okay? And the last one is you need to understand Sikh history, how it started, when it started, how they've had conflicts in the past, how it's forced them into different areas in the past. They really want you to understand all of that. Once you have that base, then they say go ahead and initiate the formal Sikh path. So you have all that knowledge, then you can go. And you should, again, you're more than welcome to be visiting the worship spaces all the while, but you should attend there more frequently. You should speak to the leaders. Again, there are no priests and there are no more gurus, but you should speak to the leaders and the wise people from that organization to further yourself. And then when you're fully ready, you're going to do that initiation ceremony, also known as the Amrit ceremony. That's where you take your point of view that you are officially accepting membership into this group. So Sikhs have different ways of worshiping. They have different practices. Did you know that there's also different ways to practice Sikhism? In my research, there are 7-ish, but some of them are very similar. So we're going to talk about the 4 main different versions. Very, very intriguing that there are different versions or offshoots, if you want to call them that, of Sikhism. So in the United States of America, there is what's known as the 3HO. It's Happy, Healthy, Holy Organization. And it was created by Yogi Banya. And basically it incorporated yoga into the meditation. Intriguingly, this was started in America and it was focused on white Americans in the 1960s, which, if you don't know anything about America in the 1960s, it was very racially divided. And so for an organization that's preaching about love and the divinity of everybody, and then you're focusing on white Americans only focusing on that love, that seems a bit sketchy to me. The second offshoot is Namd Haris, and this believes that Balak Sai of Narzo actually surpassed the last guru, and he's going to come to life again. Okay? They are different from, so they don't believe that the gurus have ended. They believe that it now transitioned into a different version, and that person's going to come back again. They believe in reincarnation, but they believe that he's coming back. They also are very big animal activists and protecting animal rights. A lot of their members are part of PETA, the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals. They are also really big into only drinking and consuming water from natural sources. So rivers, lakes, or rainwater. They will not drink water from the tap. And also, intriguingly, they will not wear black or blue clothing. I'm not quite sure why they won't wear black or blue clothing, but that's part of their belief. They don't wear black and blue clothing. Another group is the Narnakaris, and they follow the teachings of Baba Daya, and it was started by Galam Sai. So they follow the teachings of somebody else who was a leader of Sikhism, okay? And they don't bury or cremate their deceased, but rather they will take your body and release the whole thing into a flowing body of water. Okay, that's their interpretation. And then we have the Narmasas. And this was started, there was a group of teachers that were essentially evacuated from Anakapur in the 1700s. A group of teachers were evacuated from this area. They set up these other learning stations, learning centers, if you want to call them that. And they were teaching about Sikhism, and they were teaching about all these different things. And they had slightly different ideas on how to carry out the Sikh faith. Their big thing is they don't believe that you need to complete an initiation ceremony. They believe that when you do the studying, you will just be part of the Sikh community. You don't need to do a ceremony. The other thing that they do is they wear orange. They wear orange so that other people can see them and they can enlighten other people and bring happiness and joy to the world. So that's what they believe. Sikhism was very interesting for me to discover. Lots of things I very much liked. Lots of things I had questions about. Lots of learning. And I love that. So thanks so much for joining me today. Hopefully you learned something as well, because the more we know, the more we grow. And I love that. If you liked today's video, please go ahead and give this a like and hit our subscribe button so that you can see our videos the next time we post them. Until the next time, take care.